stretching across deserts, mountains, rivers, and plains. The Great Wall of China is one of humanity's most recognizable creations. To the tourist standing atop its gray stone battlements today, it feels eternal, almost otherworldly, a monument of pride and persistence. It is hailed as the only man-made structure visible from space, a myth repeated so often that people mistake it for fact. But behind the postcard images and patriotic slogans lies another story, one that history has tried to soften, erase, or bury. The Great Wall is not just a wall. It is a graveyard, a battlefield, a line of division, and a mirror reflecting the ambitions and fears of the rulers who built it. For every stone that still stands, there are countless secrets hidden within. Stories of suffering, betrayal, failure, and survival. This is the untold story of the Great Wall of China, the truth behind the myths, the blood beneath the bricks, and the hidden history that reveals what the wall really was. The Great Wall was never one single wall. It began as many walls, scattered fortifications built by small kingdoms long before China was unified. As early as the 7th century BCE, rival states in the Warring States period erected rammed earth defenses to keep nomadic raiders at bay. These early walls were crude, made from packed soil, reeds, and wood. But they served a purpose. They marked boundaries. In a world without satellite maps or GPS, walls defined identity. They told outsiders, this is ours, that is yours. For centuries, the northern nomads, particularly the Xiongnu, ancestors of the Huns, were a constant threat. They were fast, mobile, and devastating. Their cavalry could sweep down from the steppe with little warning, striking villages and disappearing before organized armies could respond. The walls, though imperfect, were the only buffer. Thus, the wall was not just military. It was psychological. It was a line of separation between the settled farmers of the Chinese heartland and the nomadic tribes beyond. Civilization versus wilderness. Order versus chaos. At least, that was how the emperors told the story. In 221 BCE, China was unified under its first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, the same ruler who ordered the building of the Terracotta Army. Obsessed with control, he envisioned a single, unbroken defense against the northern tribes. He commanded the connection of existing regional walls into what we might call the first version of the Great Wall. But building it was not a feat of ingenuity alone. It was a feat of cruelty. Hundreds of thousands of laborers were conscripted. Soldiers, peasants, prisoners, even scholars who displeased the emperor. They worked under brutal conditions, with little food, no proper tools, and almost no rest. The emperor's dream of a unified wall became, for the workers, a nightmare of endless toil. Many never saw their families again. Chinese legends tell us, for every stone in the wall, a life was lost. While this may be exaggerated, historians estimate that hundreds of thousands, perhaps over a million, perished during its construction. Their bodies, according to myth, were buried inside the wall itself. Archaeologists debate whether human remains were literally mixed into the wall's mortar, but one fact is clear. The wall was a death sentence for many who built it. Workers died of exhaustion, starvation, disease, and exposure to harsh climates. The mountains were freezing, the desert scorching, and supplies scarce. One of the most haunting stories is that of Meng Jiangyu, a woman whose husband was taken to work on the wall and never returned. She journeyed to find him, only to discover he had died during construction. Her grief was so overwhelming that she wept before the wall until it collapsed, revealing his bones. The tale became a powerful symbol, a reminder of the human suffering hidden behind imperial glory. But stories like Meng Jianyu's were inconvenient for rulers. They contradicted the narrative of the wall as a noble project of protection. So they were often dismissed as folk tales, whispers kept alive only by ordinary people. Ironically, the wall was never as effective as emperors wanted people to believe. Despite its size and ambition, it was breached multiple times throughout history. The most famous example was in 1644, when the Ming dynasty's defenses collapsed. A Ming general opened the gates at Shenhaiguan to allow the Manchu armies in, not because the wall failed structurally, but because corruption and betrayal made it useless. This led to the fall of the Ming and the rise of the Qing dynasty. The truth is simple. Walls can slow enemies, but they cannot stop human ambition, cunning, or treachery. The wall was as much a political symbol as a military one. It told the people that their rulers were protecting them, even when invasion still occurred. The Great Wall was not only built to keep enemies out, it was also built to keep people in. For peasants and workers, the wall represented imperial authority, a constant reminder that the emperor's reach extended even to the edge of the known world. In this sense, the wall was as much about control as it was about defense. It marked the boundary of empire, the edge of taxation, and the limit of cultural identity. To cross it without permission was treason. To live near it was to live under constant surveillance by watchtowers and garrisons. Thus, the wall was not just stone and earth. It was ideology, cast in brick. Over time, myth about the wall flourished, some encouraged by rulers themselves. That it was visible from the moon, a modern myth, but one that fed nationalist pride. That it was impenetrable despite repeated invasions. That it was built purely for defense, ignoring its role as propaganda and control. Even the very phrase Great Wall is misleading. The Chinese originally called it the Long Wall, Changcheng, less glorious, more practical. The idea of it as a great wall was promoted later, when emperors wanted it to symbolize strength and unity. The wall was not a single, uniform barrier. It was a network of structures, fortresses, signal towers, hidden passageways, and secret gates. Fires and smoke signals were used to send warnings across vast distances, allowing defenders to communicate at incredible speeds for their time. Some towers were disguised with false walls, while certain sections were built with double corridors to trap enemies. In desert areas, entire garrisons lived within fortress towns embedded along the wall, leaving behind ruins that archaeologists are still uncovering. These hidden features reveal the wall's complexity. It was less like a single wall and more like a vast defensive ecosystem. We remember emperors and dynasties, but we forget those who lived and died by the wall. Soldiers stationed there faced isolation, boredom, and harsh conditions. Many married local women, creating communities that blended frontier and heartland cultures. Villages, too, depended on the wall for survival. Some worked as suppliers, traders, or builders. Others were displaced, their land taken for construction. For them, the wall was not a wonder. It was a burden. The wall shaped lives, not just in Beijing or Lebanon, but in every remote frontier village it touched. For much of Chinese history, the wall was not glorified. Dynasties rose and fell, and many rulers considered it a failure or even a shameful waste. It wasn't until the 20th century, with the rise of nationalism, that the wall became a proud symbol of Chinese identity. Foreign travelers in the 19th and 20th centuries marveled at it, romanticizing its scale. Eventually, UNESCO declared it a World Heritage Site in 1987. Today, it is one of the most visited tourist attractions in the world, a bucket list destination. Yet much of what people see is a reconstruction. Sections like Beideling near Beijing were heavily restored in the 20th century. The real wall, in remote deserts and mountains, is crumbling, a silent ruin ignored by tourists. Recent surveys using drones and satellites have revealed that the wall is even longer than previously believed, over 21,000 kilometers when counting all branches. Many sections remain hidden under sand, forests, or farmland. Archaeologists have found ancient graffiti carved into the stone by soldiers, names of forgotten builders, and traces of weapons and tools. These discoveries remind us that the wall was not just imperial propaganda. It was lived history, marked by ordinary hands. The truth is that the Great Wall was never a single, unbroken miracle. It was a patchwork, built and rebuilt, abandoned and restored, glorified and forgotten. It was not always great. It was often cruel, costly, and ineffective. Its stones carry the weight of human suffering. Yet it also became a symbol of endurance, resilience, and cultural identity. History tried to hide the failures, the betrayals, and the suffering. Emperors preferred tales of triumph. Modern tourism prefers images of majesty. But the wall's real story is deeper. It is a story of human ambition, both noble and ruthless. Today, the wall is everywhere. In films like The Great Wall, 2016, in advertisements, in Chinese school books, and in the imagination of travelers worldwide. It represents China's endurance, but it also fuels nationalism and pride. Yet standing on the wall today, one cannot help but feel the ghosts of those who built it. Beneath the tourist crowds and souvenir shops lies a scar across the land, a monument not only to human achievement, but also to human suffering. The Great Wall of China is not simply a wonder of the world. It is a mirror, reflecting the dreams and fears of rulers, the suffering of common people, and the myths we tell ourselves about history. It was built to divide, yet now it unites people in awe. It was once a prison for laborers, yet now it is a pilgrimage site for millions. The untold secrets of the wall remind us that history is never simple. Behind every monument is a hidden story, buried in shadows, waiting to be uncovered. And as long as the wall stands, crumbling, winding, enduring, it will whisper those secrets to anyone willing to listen.